Hi, everyone. Welcome to Using Human Intelligence to Build an Effective Recruiting Strategy. Really excited that everyone's here. With so much emphasis on finding the right talent, coupled in an anomalistic year with a soft economy, big failures, tightening of the federal funds rate, excess cash has been sucked out of the market and we're forced to do more with less. Coupled with unforeseen dynamics of quiet quitting, lackluster contributional involvement from individual contributors, and the discrete multiple full-time remote job conundrum, the significance and benefit of infusing human intelligence into your organization's core is undeniable. Regardless of your company's size or state, this transformative step can no longer be overlooked. So today, I'm going to bend your minds, challenge your way of thinking, and share insights that may or may not have a lasting impact on how you build an effective recruiting strategy by using human intelligence. At White Label Advisors, we embody our principles, strive and thrive with purpose to deliver the most poignant organizational transformations. Our methodologies are proven out by our being. It works because we're intrinsically aligned at our core. What I hope to share with you today are insights, principles, and a new way of thinking, which will help your organization design an effective recruiting strategy by using human intelligence to not only attract talent and subsequently build cohesive bonds, but also garner high performance and intrinsic fulfillment of each individual contributor. Together, driving productivity, quality, and profitability to the bottom line. So this is how we're going to accomplish it. We'll cover purpose, form, function, look at the factors of human intelligence, look at the strategy of campaign design, and analyze tangible results through the data. But before we get started, we wanted to make this a little interactive today since we're in a virtual setting. So Stephanie, my assistant, who's backstage, is going to put up some polls before we start each section, so we can poll the audience to see what everyone's thinking, feeling, and then we'll dive into the topics. So Stephanie, can you run our first poll? Great. So we can see the votes coming in. And keep voting, and really excited to see what everyone's feedback is. Recruiting is the beginning of the funnel. It's that first phase to instilling life into the organization. Not only is it a sales process, which will mirror the external construct of your sales organization built to generate revenue, it is the first step in your overall human capital strategy. This requires intentional early planning to determine which behaviors and interactions are desired. And this includes everyone. So that's the ELT, the LT, management, work teams, and individual contributors. Well before recruiting activities commence, the ELT really needs to be aligned and clear on components of their overall recruiting strategy. Talent recruited into each division will fuel the success or failure of each ELT member's quarterly, annual, and 3 to 5 year goals. Talent acquisition or recruiting, it's a sales function and process with exponential returns when properly calibrated to the broader internal human capital strategy and external growth strategy. The form is that it mirrors the external sales org. The function is the process. So let's identify these 4 key form traits. Sales, we've talked about, it's recruiting mirrors that sales process. It follows the same inputs and outputs of sales cycle activity. We have to know our target market. So in recruiting, this means we need to know who our ideal candidate is and create those ideal candidate profiles. So just like in sales, we have ICPs for our ideal client or ideal customer profile. We do the same in recruiting. And that's in partnership with the hiring managers. What's really important to know is that this process takes time. Now, moving on to marketing. Marketing fosters brand equity and integrates strategic messaging to achieve results in the sales process. And just like we market our brand and we personify our brand through our marketing department and teams and strategy, for the external sales org, we do the same internally. Then communication really is paramount, and it's what makes this entire process work or not work. Active communication with all parties maintains brand equity in the candidate experience. And we're really concerned about what the candidate is experiencing. So at White Label, something that we do is we actually, through the process, define the DOSI matrix that stands for the driver, the approver, the contributor, and the informed. And we know between the key stakeholders of the hiring process how that DOSI matrix evolves with those key stakeholders. At certain times, individuals can be a driver, but at other times they can be the informed. And so it's important to identify that at the beginning so that the candidate experience is elevated and consistent by our internal communication. So as we talk about sales and marketing and communication, these strategies are paired. Recruiting can be a thing, but it's also an action. The thing is that it's a process. We're selling candidates on our organizations, our purpose, mission, vision, values, and the talent management philosophy, which we'll explain a little bit more. It's also an action. It's our strategy to attract talent. And the system, the process, this is where form is meeting function. We incorporate brand values to personify it through our process. We start with a broad candidate pool. We have intake forms, which this is a systematized approach to the various considerations for decision-making when a new role is added to the org. We have to decide how access, budget, equipment, performance, metrics, and tools are assigned to the role and what's important to make that role successful. The intake form is also guiding consideration and decision-making for the interview structure. Which key stakeholders need to be involved at which step of the process for efficient and optimal use of each key stakeholder's time. Lastly, it provides for an intentional and objective hiring decision process, entirely based on the candidate's ability to perform according to the scoped role. And with role scoping, it's one of my favorite components of the overall process, because not only are we searching for a candidate whose knowledge, skills, and abilities, plus experience fill the company's tactical needs, we're intentional about determining which attributes are critical to high performance and success. Oftentimes, we don't talk about attributes within kind of role scope. We leave that for kind of higher level development with our leaders. But attributes are still critical to performing well in a role and understanding which talent will be right in the role. Examples of attributes are sense of urgency, navigating the room, a strong desire to win, precision in work product, and achieving buy-in. Something else that you might hear talked about is aptitude, and that's important as well, but it's more generalized than attributes. Aptitude indicates an individual's willingness to grow. And the two that I hire for and have been doing this for years are coachability and willingness. So something that we like to do at White Label is define our processes through mapping. A quarter, 1/4 of any project and the success of it is led out in the planning phase. The best validation for this comes from Taylor Swift's song, Mastermind, where she says, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And I know it's not a direct quote from Taylor, but I'm sure everyone's now hearing that song in their head. So, thinking about why planning is so important, the process mapping really takes us down into the narrow detail of what it takes to drive an effective recruiting process so that the candidate has a great experience. And the way that we've designed this is we're really intentional about naming what components of the process are data-oriented, which are documenting, and where decisions are happening, where dependencies lie, and what's needed for preparation. So with an effective recruiting strategy, within the interview process, the brand values that we incorporate into the interview questions help us achieve intrinsic alignment of the candidate to the company. With our hiring decisions, those brand values achieve intrinsic alignment of the company to the candidate. And with role scope, it's answering for those core competencies, the required attributes, and determines aptitude references needed for successful performance. So before we jump to the next section, where we'll be talking about attracting versus acquiring talent, we're going to run another poll. So Stephanie, can you please place that poll? Thank you. A business group and workplace culture is comprised of free and equal people. As a workplace community, all individuals relate as equals despite their varying economic, geographic, and social factors, which distinguish them as individuals. A person's individuality, which is built on economic, geographic, and social factors of their past, is independently and collectively important. These unique factors become value inputs to a business group and workplace culture. They offer opportunities to the community by bringing together a diversity of life experiences, diversity of thought, varying approaches to problem solving, degrees of adaptability, forbearance, and more. With human intelligence, we look at it as a principled element and component of the organization. And results at every level in recruiting, performance, and retention are achieved through these principles of human intelligence. When we talk about human intelligence, it's the human capacity or ability to acquire, apprehend, and apply knowledge. It's marked by complex cognitive and intellectual feats and high levels of motivation, creativity, and self-awareness. Something that I really like to talk about is intellectual humility. And I believe intellectual humility pairs nicely with self-awareness, because that's when we're aware of our life experiences, which have derived our perceptions and really created our own needs and motivators. Yet it elevates us to being open and accepting of others' perspectives and life experiences. And with attraction, it occurs on an intrinsic level. Our recruiting sales process communicates brand equity. Purpose and mission, vision, and values attract individuals who will achieve high levels of personal fulfillment, thus being committed to goals and initiatives of the company long term. And we've talked about purpose a lot today, and you're seeing purpose paired with mission, vision, values quite a bit. Like we defined with the recruiting process, it's not only a thing, but it's also an action. Purpose as a thing is the reason for which something is done or created for which something exists, but the action is one's intention or objective. And cohesion is something that takes this action and binds it. Cohesion fosters an inherently healthy culture that provides a psychologically and physically safe environment, serving the needs of the individual while contributing to the collective intelligence and benefit of the group. One of my favorite quotes, and I know my team's here today, so they're probably tired of hearing it at this point, is this: culture is what people do with each other and comes into being when persons choose to be a people. And I like to say it's when persons choose to be a people together. What we hope to achieve within a community is that the distributive approach to relational equality exists, and the workplace community exemplifies the definition of culture. So as we discuss these concepts and these principles, visualize a mechanical wheel that's made of a conductive metal. So you can pick your favorite one. Maybe it's gold, maybe it's silver. But think about each component of the wheel as a conduit to the next layer. Mission, vision, values. I know for all of the leaders and HR professionals in the room, you know how critical it is. And we have these effectual layers of cohesive trust, bidirectional accountability, and the talent management philosophy that really derive out of purpose. So if we're thinking about this mechanical wheel, there has to be a core or center to it, and that center is purpose. And built around purpose is our mission, vision, and values. And from there, we extend out the cohesive trust that we build together as a people. We offer and provide a safe environment where we can thrive with bidirectional accountability. And that means accountability from the individual contributor on up to the ELT, and from the ELT through to the individual contributor. And then our talent management philosophy. And we'll explain the talent management philosophy here in a little bit. With the mission, vision, values, is it, resides in that outer layer, but directly next to purpose. It's the demonstration of the thing. It's how we demonstrate our purpose, and it's how we live that intention or objective. So when we talk about cohesive trust, bidirectional accountability, and now explain the talent management philosophy, we're going to focus on what they are, the effect, the counteraction, and the origin. With cohesive trust, we've shared that it fosters an inherently healthy culture that provides a psychologically and physically safe environment, serving the needs of the individual while contributing to the collective intelligence and benefit of the group. The effect is a safe and successful strategy. The counteraction alleviates root cause behavioral patterns, which may evolve into actions that become harmful towards another person or a group. The origin, its progressional steps, scientifically developed from neuroscience and anthropological fields of study. With bidirectional accountability, it requires each individual and group to be accountable to the other. The effects are that it promotes an equalized environment and encourages function and productivity. The counteraction is that it gives zero space for deflection, prevents managing up, and fosters a healthy work environment. The origin is answerable in literature, which means liable to be called to account. Our talent management philosophy is a decisive standardization by the ELT to set the point of measurement for each acceptance, accountability, inclusion, performance, and transparency. The effects that it has is that the same definition and understanding throughout the organization determines the protocols for measurement. It supports fairness and equality. The counteraction is inequitable treatment, opening our organization to risks and liabilities and potentially favoritism. The origin is qualitative cultural dynamics. Our workforce demographics are influenced by the organization's financial strategy. And we'll jump to that in a little bit. But first, I want to talk more about why safety is so important and put it into a present day scenario. So this cultural workplace safety survey came out this year, which identified that younger workers will take action to prioritize their safety if employers won't. More than 30% of Gen Z workers say that they have turned down job opportunities and switched jobs because they felt vulnerable or at an increased level of risk in their workplace setting. With today's current dynamic on how difficult it is to attract talent, but also retain talent, we need to be mindful of the current workforce demographic and the up and coming generations and what's important to them by way of their individual and personal value set. So as we talk about human intelligence, as we talk about cohesive trust, bidirectional accountability, and the ELT really setting the stage for a talent management philosophy that fosters an effective organization, which is measuring performance and driving attention to results, the safety component cannot be overlooked from a psychological perspective or a physical perspective, because that's what's being demanded of the younger generations now. I believe in the study too that Millennials also found this important, but a small percentage less did. So as we're working on defining our recruiting strategy, and we'll talk a little bit more about our campaign in a minute, I thought this was an important kind of data set to highlight from studies coming out this year. So before we jump to the next section, Stephanie's going to run our next poll. With everything that we've talked about thus far, it's really important to know that strategy happens now. I just shared about some of the new needs and personal values from the Gen Z workforce. We have to be able to apply and pivot and adapt to the changing needs of our workforce. When cohesive cultures take hold, business goals and initiatives are easier to achieve. Revenue and profitability targets are more readily aligned, and positive shareholder sentiment is stronger. Each a direct result of highly effective team performance, which ensures sustainable talent acquisition, performance, and retention metrics. With our financial strategy, what I was alluding to earlier is that our financial strategy really can impact our recruiting strategy. And I'm not sure if you've thought about it much, but a company who is essentially going after top line revenue looks and feels very different from the organization who's focused on margin efficiency. Not only by way of just company maturity around their business life cycle and their modeling, but also with the workforce demographic. So with White Label Advisors, we're headquartered in Utah. We work nationally and internationally. But in our local business community, we have a high number of entrepreneurs and startups to Series A companies. Most of those organizations are at a top line revenue financial strategy. So our candidate pools from universities and sometimes high school or technical schools are really saturated because top line revenue companies are going after low wage workers in a high number. Where on the flip side, margin efficient companies, they've been around the block. They've learned through some of their mistakes, but they also have developed their processes to the point where they can now recalibrate and focus on optimizing their process versus just building a process. So that margin efficient workforce has a great deal of experience, higher levels of education, and we can do more with less. So our org charts tend to shrink, but we have more efficiency from a man-hour capacity. And so the recruiting strategy from a workforce who matches that top line revenue to the margin efficient group looks very, very different. Additionally, the product and market become incredibly important. The recruiting strategy and campaign design that we'll build out for a company that's hiring in a manufacturing workforce demographic versus an ed tech company who is going after PhDs and professionals that have learning degrees will look very, very different. And so we have to know our product and our market as well as our customers. And we have to be attuned to those macroeconomic fluctuations. Oftentimes that will impact the way that we design our campaigns and that we design our marketing and communications to attract the right talent. And lastly, we talked about it a lot, but not to forget it, brand identity is critical here as well. And being able to personify that brand in a way that we're influencing our recruiting campaign design is really important. And for me, that's the fun part of the campaign and planning that campaign. So as we're using human intelligence to effectively drive our recruiting strategy, financial strategy requires a partnership with the CFO, potentially the FP&A team, and a controller. Anyone in that finance group, based on how the organization is designed, they become a critical partner to the recruiting strategy and the campaigns. Within product and market, this requires a partnership with the CEO, CRO, and CMO, or equivalent roles. And essentially moving over to brand identity, the same thing happens. We need a partnership with the CMO, the marketing team, and the media teams. And early on, when we started out, we talked about a partnership with the hiring manager. So what's kind of surfacing up is that recruiting is important, and to run an effective recruiting strategy that's based in human intelligence, it really takes partnerships with the ELT and with hiring managers. And it cannot be disparate or run separately, where the recruiter or the talent team or the HR team is solely responsible for driving effective recruiting. It takes the key stakeholders within the organization to partner to identify what that right strategy is going to be. So to provide a case study, I mentioned, an ed tech company hiring learning professionals. Part of a campaign that we designed, a recruiting campaign that we designed a number of years ago, we were able to have fun with it. The sky was the limit, and we decided to get really creative. So what we did is we themed our recruiting strategy and this campaign, and we called it Work with a Purpose. The organization was very cohesive, and as I built relationships with individuals at that organization because of my role, I learned quickly that everyone was working there for a specific purpose. They felt like they were fulfilled as an individual because they were giving to this kind of higher good through education. And we attached on to that recurring theme and essentially put a name and a face to it. So the campaign theme was Work with a Purpose, but to really spread the word and in an emotional way attract other individuals who aligned with that purpose and our mission, vision, values, we worked with our video production team to build a video campaign that we distributed through social media channels, through our email campaigns, LinkedIn, and other kind of job posting networks. And it was highly, highly successful. So we were able to increase our engineering department from 2 to 26 engineers. It was a 93% increase within about 6 to 9 months. This was at a time in the local market when tech talent was highly, highly difficult to find, high amount of demand, low amount of supply. And to get kind of extra creative around this attraction for the tech team or these software engineers, we designed some really fun swag that had a very difficult equation where the number or the answer arrived at 42. And if anyone knows The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and why 42 is important, you're probably chuckling to yourself right now. But we were able to attract quite a number of very capable engineers who ended up hiring on with us and had a long tenure with us because of kind of the cleverness around that campaign. With our video production team, you'll see here that we started out with a small number. Video production is actually a hard skill, and the market is not too saturated with those that skill set. So we had to get creative around that beyond just networking. But you'll see that we had a number of varying positions, from tech to video and media to editorial and content. And we had to adjust the recruiting strategy and campaign design from that general theme and distill it down and fine tune how we were going to communicate and market to increase headcount there. You'll see the inverse happening with the editorial group, because with that editorial group, we actually downsized. And we decided to outsource through a 1099 model content creators and downsize an editorial team. And that was a business decision to essentially grow the company at scale. And oftentimes you'll find organizations converting from maybe an internal team to an external team for various reasons, sometimes being cost, but sometimes for scale. And so you have to think about, from a recruiting strategy perspective and how you're designing the campaign, kind of what's happening on the back end, so that you can communicate brand equity correctly, but also manage and mitigate any potential feedback that might be coming through social media channels, such as Glassdoor or comments on LinkedIn, if you are downsizing one group and hiring another group. And that should be planned into a communication strategy to get ahead of any potential negative sentiment that way. And lastly, I think what's so important is really understanding how we quantify the qualitative. What does that mean? Kind of big words, but we can break it down. So when we have alignment with all core business units, partnerships with the executives, division heads, hiring managers, business units, or business owners, we're satisfying the needs of the group and with each group in the org while we're still achieving those business goals and initiatives. So quantifying the qualitative, it means we're achieving tangible results. It means soft skills aren't really soft skills, and they're really something that we can measure. They're tangible, and we can produce data and metrics around it to see the impact that is happening and the results that are occurring. Awareness of the qualitative impact an effective recruiting strategy has on your talent and people programs can begin a chain reaction to convert a cost center into a profit center. And it impacts business performance. So with companies that are just starting out, or maybe companies that are in a transformative phase where they're moving from a top line revenue strategy to a margin efficient strategy financially. Any type of transformation that's happening, or even in the beginning, we want to understand and have awareness that time, effort, resources devoted to an effective recruiting strategy using human intelligence can directly impact our bottom line. Being very conservative with white label, it's important to us to track our data and understand the impact that we have. So for every individual contributor retained, we estimate conservatively across the board that we're saving about $29,000 per individual. For every hire, very conservatively, we're saving at least $10,000 per hire. A really interesting statistic that has come out this year, and this is from a SHRM report in 2023, is that for attrition today, one individual, one IC that decides to leave our company, the cost on that person can be 200 at 200%. And so if we look at what we can save through attrition, not only from the dollars and cents where, we've pegged it at 29,000 conservatively, but from a percentage perspective, thinking about that perpetual impact or that ripple effect that we can have, there is a significant savings. Albert Einstein shared that everything that can be counted does not necessarily count, and everything that counts cannot necessarily be counted. Being who I am, sometimes I like to refute things, and I believe some of this holds true. Yet, as AI continues to develop, as we start to understand more about how the qualitative is truly quantitative, we'll be able to measure and track and understand the impact that human intelligence and using that human intelligence to apply to effective recruiting strategies, which then support performance and retention within an organization truly can be counted. So with that, I'd like to open the time up to Q&A. And we have about, I would say, 15 to 20 minutes. So I'm happy to answer questions. And then after that, before we close out today and we exit the room, White Label would like to leave everyone with a departing gift. So I'll go ahead and open it up to Q&A. So I'm jumping over to Q&A, and I see, do you often see that the HR team and marketing team work hand in hand in this endeavor? I often don't, and that's unfortunate, but also what that means is there's incredible opportunity to build kind of those bridges and those relationships. And I think where this, we can bring awareness to this kind of gap in our organizations is really at the ELT level. And with executive teams, have they brought, the head of people, whether that's a CHRO or an HR manager, it just depends, on the phase and stage of the org, kind of what level the HR leader is at, but have they brought them into that conversation? And if it's an enterprise org, have they brought the TA partner and that CHRO into the conversation? And so, Dan, I really appreciate the question because there's so much opportunity to really build bridges and partnerships that way. The next question is, our opportunity we have currently is needing to do a massive recruitment. My question is, do you change your strategy when you do group hiring? And this is by Jennifer. Jennifer, thank you. Yes, I would say you do, because marketing to a group, it's different than marketing to an individual. And so by way of the case study that I shared, we came up with a theme that, was very consistent and existed in the organization. And we attached onto that recurring theme and really personified it. And so with group hiring, I'm happy to talk more about that. After this, I'll be going into the White Label booth, and in that one-on-one setting, I'm happy to kind of, hear what is happening with your group hiring and potentially, share some ideas around a strategy that might work there. Great question. Mission, vision, values stands for, or MVV stands for mission, vision, values. I like to abbreviate a lot, so that's where that comes from. New question is, do you see that internal marketing teams are capable of connecting with candidates versus consumers or buyers? Thanks, Dan. I believe they are capable. Oftentimes, I don't think that marketing teams are actually thinking that way, and I don't want to call out that none are. I just think within organizations, we typically separate our external customers from our internal customers so much. We don't really see it as a parallel. And I think, again, there's a lot of opportunity there for marketing teams to connect with candidates and consumers. Because if we really love the product, I would hope that we're consuming it. And what I found is that companies that, provide kind of this, that build the intrinsic fulfillment piece and align that to the recruiting strategy, is that they're identifying people not from a network perspective because my friend works there, but people that are reading, the job ad or job posting or however it's going out, and they find something meaningful and fulfilling about it. And Lindsay, who is our TA partner at White Label, she's here today. She can attest to this. We've seen some really cool things happen when marketing teams can figure that out, or the TA partner or the HR partner is working with the marketing team to do that. And I think what a best case scenario to actually start recruiting, some of our customers and vice versa. Great questions. I love the synergy, and flowing from recruiting partnerships to marketing partnerships. With the polls, let's take the remaining time to answer those. So does financial strategy impact recruiting activities? Answer is yes, absolutely.
100%.
Cool. Great job, everyone. We had 100%. What scientific principle represents strong connection between people? Let's see. How many came in with the correct answer?
6. 7.
Okay, it's 7 at cohesion.
4 at fluid dynamics.
4 at fluid dynamics. Great. Fun fact, I am a complete nerd. I love to read. So a few years ago, I dived into the quantum physics kind of wormhole. More recently, I've been studying fluid dynamics and continuum mechanics actually to understand cultures and people better. But cohesion is the correct answer. Which external company function best mirrors recruiting? Is it public relations, product development, sales, or legal and compliance? How many did we have answer correctly at sales?
4 came in for sales.
4 came in for sales.
Yep.
Okay, so we're split with 11 votes there. And I would love to, talk more in the white label booth. I know this, platform doesn't allow for interaction here, but would love to hear everyone's thoughts around that. And, just ask before, this presentation, did you see the kind of external alignment from what we do within our sales, marketing, product or project management functions, business units, and did you compare those to internally what's happening with our internal customers, those employees or individual contributors, and how, we're selling, marketing, designing products to support them, and, measuring performance for engagement and fulfillment. Would be super interested to hear your thoughts around that. So with that, what I would love to do is, again, leave this group with our departing gift and final thoughts. So as an incredible happenstance for our accepting culture, white label, which respects and views humans through an egalitarian lens, it's that we grow more diverse with every hire. Our employees are safe to provide radical candor, challenge thought, and show up as they truly are. This fosters improved quality on work outputs and a greater sense of belonging, bonded in purpose. As we accept each other, care for each other, and improve together, other like-minded individuals are attracted to our atypical service model, which disrupts norms and the status quo in leadership, workforce composition, and success. So I'd like to thank my team for contributing as they do, so that we can produce content like this, which is reflective of how we choose to lead. And to the audience, I'd like to thank you for coming. I truly appreciate your time. You had many options today as how you're going to spend it. And as our departing gift, we'd like to offer a complimentary compensation analysis, which is available in our virtual booth. If you enter the booth, you'll be able to see one of the tabs is to select that and just fill out some simple information, and we'll be able to run an in-depth compensation analysis for you. So again, thank you for your time, and it's been a pleasure spending it with you today.